Hey everybody, welcome back to another episode of the Cloudcast. My name is Tyler Bauer, and I'm your host. I have Adam Kerrigan with me today, and obviously you can tell Seth is not with us. He was too cool for school, I guess, for this episode. But it's all good. Adam and I are going to have a great conversation, and I've known Adam now for all of 6 whole months. But let me tell you, quite the impression. We met in Chicago. We got to spend some time at Wrigley, hanging out, networking, meeting a lot of like-minded people. And I can tell you, he's an awesome, awesome guy with a ton of cool experience and ways to help us, really gain some insight and the ability to see around corners. With that, Adam, welcome.
Yeah, thank you, Tyler. It's good to see you again, brother. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, of course. And so, which is customary for the Cloudcast, I want to start it off by really asking you, kind of what's your mutant origin story, man? Like, really, how did you come to be?
Yeah, so a great question. So I'm based in Las Vegas, and I got my start in corporate IT back in 1999. I did that for about 10 years, and then in 2009, I founded my own MSP, a managed services provider, kind of an IT outsource IT firm. And I ran that for 10 years. And truth be told, on the outside things look good, but inside I was kind of struggling, like a lot of owners do. And for me, it was the right time to sell, and so I did. I sold to my largest local competitor, and I stayed with them for 6 years. And during that time, 2 things happened. Is one, it was pretty transformational for my own life. I lost 80 pounds. I got out of a bad marriage. I got into competitive powerlifting, and really my whole life kind of became elevated. And my partner, Tom, he said, "Hey, Adam, you're kind of the poster child for what mergers and acquisitions can do. How would you feel about helping us do more of this?" And I was like, "Dude, I'd love that." So we went on a tear, ended up completing 17 of those kind of partnerships, brought in about 20 different partners, had a blast doing that. And I love seeing the changes they had in their own life. Their strategy shifted a little bit at the end of last year. And so I went on the hunt for somebody else that could really utilize my experience and talent. I got connected with Alex Solomon, one of our founders here at Net at Work.
Who's that guy? I don't know him.
I know. But if you've ever met him, folks that are watching out there, just a fantastic, down-to-earth guy, and we instantly had a bromance going on, which I think he probably has a lot of those going on. And Net at Work did a number of things which to me fixed actually some core challenges in the IT industry, and I loved that. Alex asked me to come over, and as you said, Tyler, I've been here about 6 months, and you're actually the very first person from the Net/Cloud at Work team that I met in person, so you'll always have a special place in my heart.
Well, I'm so sorry for your luck on that one. Hopefully I was able to represent the Shield the right way.
Absolutely, 100%.
Awesome. And when we first met, I walked in and we're in the hotel. I mean, you have a calling card, right?
I do.
Yeah. So,
You gonna ask me to put it on camera right here?
You got to put it on, man. You got to stand up and put it on. The fanny pack. Let's go.
Right. Yeah, I'll throw it on here. But yeah, I just rock it. That's
right.
That's my calling card.
That's right.
Fanny pack guy.
That's right. It was so cool. I walked up and I was looking to meet Adam, massive guy, and wearing a fanny pack and a Bone Thugs and Harmony t-shirt. I was like, we're going to become best friends. This is awesome. It's like Step Brothers. Yeah.
I remember we were inseparable, the whole bus ride and everything. Yeah,
that's right.
It was a blast, man.
Awesome. Well, thank you for the background. And you said you accomplished 17 acquisitions. That's wild. Like any specific vertical, MSPs, are they big, small, didn't matter, or anything that you really found that got you to that velocity?
Yeah. So in told, I was transaction number 4 when I joined the organization, and then they did like 1 or 2 more, and then Tom, it's we really started to ramp it up, and so my focus became strictly focused on other IT companies, other MSPs that were doing what we were doing. We're really focusing in kind of like the western regions of the US, the Pacific Northwest and California. We're still based here in Las Vegas, which is where they're headquartered. But for us, they were more of a horizontal MSP, meaning they really serviced every industry out there. They weren't particularly focused on client end industries. And really what they were doing is looking for what I would say is maybe more generalists, right? And so generalists have a slightly different way of doing things, maybe than more of a verticalized, focused MSP. And so we did. So we reached out to our peer groups. We reached out just through our different networks. In fact, two of those deals I actually got through old school cold calling, believe it or not.
Hey, let's go.
So yeah, sometimes the old school is the best school.
Cold calling's got a soft spot in my heart.
Yeah.
I used to make hundreds of dials a day.
Oh yeah.
Right. So, great. Well, so that was, would you say the 17 acquisitions was over 6 years, right? Is that
so what? So when I was there, I want to say that we completed. So I was number 4. So basically, 14 of those were while I was there. And I should add that one of those is we, as a company, took on a private equity investment.
Beautiful.
So I'm including that in one of those 17. But for those that might not understand, so we got the company to a certain size, and one of the challenges is that capital is a limiting factor, right? And for instance, we went to some commercial banks and we said, hey, we'd like to get a loan for just maybe $2 million so we can kind of buy another company. And they're like, well, the minimum that we can do is $5 million. And we're like, well, we don't want that much, right? And so money is a very interesting thing once you start to get into kind of these larger areas. Well, private equity can come in, make a significant investment into the business, kind of buy, say, a majority of the company, in our case, and they bring a lot of funds from different of their own investors, large institutions, wealthy families, universities, and so on. What they do is they bring that capital to the table so that successful growing companies like we had can continue to scale and buy and acquire companies. And they call it kind of a roll-up strategy where you keep buying, and that company that they invest in becomes a platform or a portfolio company, or portco for short. But the idea here is they want to sell that, or they want to build that up, and then typically they then sell that company themselves, usually in like the 5 to 7 year range.
Perfect. So in that time frame, having a lot of conversations with owners or investors, which is super cool. What 6 years ago to today has the earth shifted in the managed service industry when it comes to exits, mergers, and acquisitions? Like, are those reasons 6 years ago the same that they are today? And what do you think is next? Like, what should we be looking out for when it comes to that?
Solid question there. So if we rewind 6 years, right, we're talking like 2018, 2019. So this is pre-COVID, right? Now, as we all know, the pandemic was a real test for the economy, for business. And while I've got limited knowledge on other industries, what I can speak to is in the managed services industry, it actually proved out a couple of things. One is managed services companies were extremely resilient, right? People that were typically working in the office, just general businesses, they all had to now work from home, right? So there was this big shift to work from home. And what it showed is that IT services was almost like a utility. Like, people relied on it heavily. They were going to pay those bills. They might miss other bills, but they were absolutely going to pay their IT providers because they needed their team to work. A second factor is MSPs tend to do a lot of their billing in a recurring style, right? So it's a monthly recurring revenue. Instead of like having to go out and kind of sell services or products at the start of every single month, you've got kind of that recurring invoice coming in. And then thirdly is a lot of the owners are similar to myself. Like 99% of MSP owners, we were career technicians who got kind of, maybe tired of working for the man or having a boss, or we wanted flexibility. And we're like, we're going to go out and do our own thing, right? Well, private equity firms are fantastic at kind of seeing uh, industries that are kind of maturing, right? And so when all these things kind of came together, what COVID showed is, hey, the MSP industry is very resilient. It's recession resistant. People are going to pay their bills. There's kind of this aging population in terms of owners that are maybe looking to start to think about retiring. So it was a perfect opportunity, and so we see a lot of that coming in. More recently, I would say that what we're seeing now, say in the last 2 years, are MSPs, smaller MSPs are very excited. They want to get into the game, right? I go to a ton of conferences. I look around and I see two things: a lot of bald heads and gray hair, my own included. And so people are excited and they're like, hey, I've got an MSP myself, but if I sold it today, I know that I wouldn't quite get enough to for that retirement nest egg that I need to retire. So what I can do, knowing that sales is tough, I can buy customers, right? So I buy maybe a smaller MSP that's in my geography, maybe somebody I've worked with for years. That's, kind of how I done it, or a peer group member or something along those lines. So we see smaller MSPs buying even small, so it's kind of the small fish or the big fish eating the smaller fish. And we're seeing that all the way down the chain. As we look forward, right, there's a lot of challenges. So we have more very mature, larger MSPs that are kind of coming to the forefront. Our team here at Net at Work is, I would probably put into that group of very forward-thinking, business focused, solving business problems. We're not just focused on IT, right? We understand our client are the people, right? Our client's not the computer. We want to keep our businesses for our clients productive. There's a couple of things coming around the corner. Cybersecurity is here, right? It's a big thing that a lot of clients face, whether it's compliance or data loss prevention, and even a lot of people hear even a newer term, AI, right? Everyone's talking about AI, and a lot of owners are thinking, hey, what does this mean for my business, right? How do I stay ahead of my competition, right? And so these are some of the things that are coming down the pipeline. And the truth is, people are going to get answers from these questions. The important thing to say is, hey, am I getting answers from an authoritative source? And really, that's kind of what we're trying to build here in part at Net at Work is really that authoritative team.
Awesome. Just to kind of go back to a period of time that you mentioned, do you feel that some of the boom of COVID, right? Because us in the cloud business, the managed service business, really being in that essential to work remotely or essential to operate a business, we saw massive booms during the COVID years, right?
Oh yeah.
Artificial sales, artificial growth that maybe was very tough to repeat, maybe in 23, 24, and even 25 as we're here. How much do you think that's leading to, maybe not investing in the right areas, for the business while we were growing, or maybe having false expectations of this is the new normal? Like, do you think some of that panic is setting in, within the community where, hey, I remember this period of time when we were really humming and things were great.
Oh yeah.
Like, but now it's like keeping up with the Joneses, right?
You're 100% right. Look, the far and away the biggest challenge every industry in every business for all time is new client sales, right? At least I'm a big believer of that. So you're right. It was easier during COVID because people were scrambling, right? And the numbers off the top of my head is, as an industry, the MSP industry typically grows in like the 10 to 11% annual rate year over year. During COVID years, from like 2020 to 21, 22, 19 plus percent. So it was like double kind of growth. So basically money was coming at MSPs left and right. It was easy growth, right? They just kind of put out their arms, they're scooping up the money. There were challenges, right? Sourcing materials. It was hard to get computers. It was hard to get components, but people were really fighting to kind of spend money. Now that has slowed, it's worrying some people. And I'll even add, there's also another trend, which is that we're kind of coming out of. So the MSP industry gets affected by the presidential cycle. So every 4 years, as you know, there's a new U.S. presidential election. And what happens is there's there's kind of a slow in generalized spending, right? Just generalized business wants to see how does it turn out. Does the Democrat or the Republican become the one who gets elected? And so what happens is those clients of MSPs pause their spending, and there's this ripple effect, right? So for instance, 2024 was even a further down year. So we were way up here with COVID, and then it just came down for 2023, came down for 2024. The good news is what we typically see is kind of rebound the year after, and we're starting to see that here in 2025 as spending is starting to pick back up because, hey, we know who the president is now. Um, and so that spending starts to come back into the picture. The challenge, though, is there's just a lot of uncertainty, just globally and in the macro picture right now. But um, you know what it does is it starts to separate the people that were coasting, right? They were assuming that growth was going to continue. Their business values maybe are ticking down more than they would have liked to, but the people who are fantastically, they're sales minded. They've got a sales team. They've got sales process. They're still killing it, right? They're still kind of out there winning and taking new clients.
Yeah, I mean, because look, sales solves all problems, right? You can make mistakes if you're selling a
Yeah,
lot, right?
yeah,
100%. Well, with that same mindset too, right? We saw in 22, 23, and even 24, maybe some companies who did not have an M&A strategy start to become the bigger fish, right? Or try to attempt to be the bigger
oh yeah,
fish. And obviously, without that organic growth, if that's lacking, you can't still be the big fish acquiring little ones
hmm
and hide that for too long, especially with private equity. Can you kind of give us kind of that recipe, if you will? Like, great, private equity is definitely a way to inject funds into your company to
hmm
allow you to scale, but you certainly still need that engine that's going to continue to grow that revenue and
yeah.
grow your own business organically, or it just won't sustain. Are you seeing that some companies are in that cycle where they're looking to exit because of that?
Yeah, look, again, speaking to the MSP industry and specifically, 99%, as I mentioned, of founders are kind of OG techs, right? We got our experience as a technician in the field, and we kind of then switched over and started a company. The reality is, and I'm going to speak to the stereotypical kind of technician, right? They're more introverted, they're very process driven, they like details, they probably are more comfortable dealing with a computer than a person, right? And I'm being very stereotypical here. The translation of that is in the conversations that I have with people is they love focusing on the operations. They love fine tuning. They love getting the right tools and kind of bringing things together. The trade-off there is that they may be neglecting their sales and marketing, right? And so they rely very much on word of mouth. So as an example, in our industry, MSPs will grow revenue wise to about the 2 to 3 million of revenue mark based on word of mouth alone. They're giving great customer service. All their clients have the cell phone number of the owner, right? They're there and they're very responsive. The challenge is they cap out, right? And so because they've failed to implement a sales and marketing program, let alone one that's scalable, they really get capped, right? The ones that then progress to say the next major threshold of 5 million, they're able to really get a focus on sales. It's generally led by the owner, right? Because they're still kind of smallish as a business. They can't quite afford like a VP of sales or an outsourced sales team or something like that. Um, but yes, and so the challenge is one, the personality style of the owner, right? Are they oriented more for operations or for sales? And then the second challenge is you mentioned, Tyler, about these bigger MSPs coming onto the scene. Larger MSPs, it's probably safe to say they've figured out a lot of those challenges, right? Specifically sales. They've got a sales leader, maybe multiple sales leader. They've got a sales force, right? They've got marketing. They probably have a marketing team and it's established. And what's happening today, and this is the advice that I'm kind of sharing with smaller MSPs, maybe those that are definitely under 10 and maybe under 5 million, is you're probably going to see a risk of your clients leaving you and getting taken by larger MSPs, right? Because they've got that that force that's out there selling, and historically you've been able to rely on that relationship with cybersecurity and compliance and kind of AI coming out. You're going to have to be competing on all these fronts and just kind of hoping and praying that relationship is enough. So it's a lot really for owners, and it's just kind of on their mind constantly.
Yeah, and with these new tool sets and certainly priorities, gaps within customer environments are becoming easier to
Oh
identify.
yeah.
Automation is making things that much more efficient for managed service providers to deliver even higher levels of service at a better rate for less price, right?
Oh yeah.
And it's really driving a very competitive landscape. I'm seeing a lot of very interesting, programs that managed service providers are pushing into the market, being extremely aggressive towards betting on their service model and betting on their platform that they've invested in.
Yeah.
And certainly, I don't think it's too late, in my opinion, to really create a plan and invest in yourself to do that.
Hmm.
But certainly, it's an Everest climb at this point, right? If you
Oh,
weren't doing
100%.
this about 2 or 3 years ago, it's gonna be a climb for sure, and you're
Well,
gonna need partners to help you do that for
I,
sure.
I agree with you, and I'll even add to that. In April here in Vegas, there was one of the larger IT conferences, and with kind of the advent of AI, like at every single level, and I know a lot of times people are like, it's just this or it's just that, but the reality is AI is coming, right? Maybe it's not necessarily here today, but it's absolutely coming. And so there's all this business intelligence and business data, right? That AI is going to help us to be able to manage and really get our hands in there to understand our business and understand our clients. And I don't just mean us as MSPs. I'm talking every business out there, from accountants to construction to, blue collar, professional services, distribution, logistics, manufacturing, everything out there, right? And at this conference in April, the keynote address was actually kind of basically saying, hey, we are changing as an industry. We have been managed services providers. We are now MIPs, managed intelligence providers. And so we're seeing this transition, this evolution of our industry happen in response to kind of what is coming down the pipeline for our clients. And the reality is this: the providers, the MSPs that fail to address these coming changes are frankly going to lose out to those who are ahead of the curve. We talk about looking around corners. We want to make sure that we're looking out for our clients, because we know that if we're not, somebody else is.
100%. And I have a lot of friends in the industry and friends who own tech companies and managed service companies, and the whole MSP wave, happened, in that 20-ish year ago time frame.
Hmm.
So it's nothing new. But really, where we came from was how do we recreate how we deliver service where we can become more proactive, and how can we afford to become more proactive? It's to really consolidate these services and not measure ourselves by hours, but measure ourselves by deliverables and deadlines,
Business
right?
result. That's right.
And that really reshaped, I think, consumption of IT. What I tell companies now that I'm talking to, when I ask them what they do, and they're asking me, they're saying, "Hey Tyler, what do you think about this? What do you think about that? Am I too late here? XYZ within Azure or AI or security." And I ask them what they do, and they define themselves by the products they represent. And the first answer that I give them is, "You're probably too late." And they said, "Well, how do you know? You haven't really heard." And my answer back is, at this point in time, if you're defining yourself by someone else's strategy, that's a problem. And your clients are now going to have X-ray glasses to see through that, because the publishers are certainly going to be there to support you and help drive value for your clients. But make no mistake, there are massive organizations who have bigger relationships, and those publishers are going to go where the money is and where the customers want to be. So you have to think about the experiences that your customers are having and what you're striving towards. It's not like Pokemon cards, right? We're going to collect all these customers and great, we're good. No, we have to keep them happy. We have to innovate. We have to create these new things that really engage with our customers and help them see around those corners that we talk about. If we're doing that, then certainly when I'm talking to clients or talking to some of my buddies who are looking to acquire businesses, I'm saying, hey, think about these things, right, strategically, and do this the smartest way possible. But what are your thoughts? Like, there's such a wide range of executive within this space. There's some that are perfectly happy with that little bank of customers locally, and then there's some that have aspirations. But it's really hard to tell somebody, yeah, go get it, right? Because it's really a timing game at the end of the day,
Yeah, look, I assume you're talking about like from an entrepreneur mind, from the owner mindset.
Correct. Yeah.
Yeah.
They're trying. A lot of people are asking, is this the right time to exit, or should I double down and go get funding and try and an M&A strategy and grow organically and invest in the people and reshape my strategy completely.
It's so funny because when I have this conversation commonly, like just as an example. So last year alone, I had over 300 one-on-one conversations on the topic of M&A with owners, right? And so one of my skills, I guess, or maybe my superpowers is seeing patterns, right? And so one of the things that I noticed is one of the initial questions I'll ask people is, they'll say, hey, Adam, I see what's going on in the industry and I want to do the same thing. And I'll kind of lean and I'm like, do you really have gas in the tank for that? Or are you burned out? And on occasion, some people are like, no, hey, I love doing this. Like, I want to take it to the next level. I love my brand. I love my processes. I just want to do this. I'm like, fantastic. Let me tell you everything I know because I love my brothers and sisters in the industry. I want to see them win, right? A lot of times, though, frankly, they kind of sit back in their chair and they're like, that sounds like a lot of work, right? Because they've got their day job of running their business. And frankly, here's what I think is the worst strategy for M&A, or the worst reasoning to do M&A, is their business, right? We talked about their owner mind, or they're operationally minded and focused. Is they're like, yeah, I'm really struggling with sales. You know what I'm going to do? I'm going to buy another company. You know what they just did? They just doubled their problem, right? So now they've got two segments that aren't growing. What I say to people, especially when the topic of valuation comes up, because everybody wants to know, what's my MSP worth, Adam? I say, that's a whole nother conversation. We'll have to set aside another hour for that, Tyler. But what I tell people is, in our industry, EBITDA, right, which is a measurement of profitability, is the big number that we go off of. But what I tell people is growth is worth more than EBITDA. So selling, growing, getting new accounts, building in price increases automatically into your contracts, upselling, cross-selling, bringing new services to your accounts, right? Maximizing what you can. The people that have the forethought and really a little bit of gas in the tank to set a year, right? Say, hey, I'm going to specifically set a timing for now, and I'm going to sell within 1 year. They can get a huge uplift in the value of their business to really maximize, kind of what they have. And look, the reality is the answer is different for every person. Some people want to go 20 years. Some people really needed to get out last year, but they're at where they're at. It's a very personal conversation, but look, we're doing the best that we can. I always suggest to people, hey, reach out to peers, reach out to people that have sold. It's a very emotional thing. Our identities are often interwoven with our business. I know mine was. It was a big ego hit, taking that hat off, right? I'm not making all the decisions anymore. Some I was happy about, some I didn't like, right? And it's kind of swallowing that pill. So there's a number of trade-offs, but I'll say personally for me, I don't regret selling, not a single day. I'm very happy with where my life's at today.
That's awesome. Yeah. And I think there's really not a wrong answer. The whole reason for this conversation is to just, the theme is be honest with yourself, right? And if you're trying to solve problems by compounding them and getting into M&A yourself, by buying a company. Just like you said, you're compounding problems in some cases.
Yeah.
If you're buying a company that fixes your problems, chances are that's just a very good roll of the dice on your end, right? It's not, there's not like a magic wand that's going to fix everything for you. But this is such a fantastic industry of people that I've met that I feel really want each other to succeed and want the best. So I think the best advice you gave is talk to your peers, talk to other people who have done it, and really think hard about yourself and what you feel success looks like for the future. All right, that being said, we have about 5 minutes left.
All right.
Leave them with 3 nuggets. What's around the corner? What should we be doing in 26?
All right. So first and foremost, focus on sales, right? I just said a minute ago, growth is worth more than EBITDA, right? Growth is worth more than profitability. Growing companies are so difficult to find. That right there is absolutely going to boost your value. So get a sales program, get devoted to sales, execute, right? So that's the first one. Second one is if you're considering and contemplating going the M&A route, you're like, hey, you know what? This is the year for me. I want to sell, right? 2 things is we want to have a team of advisors. And the top 3 that I say are 1, get an industry specific M&A advisor, right? And I get a lot of pushback from this because people are like, Adam, it costs to do that. Yes, if you've never sold a business before, it's a minefield. It's like paying for a Sherpa to help you scale Mount Everest, right? I want them to be able to lick their finger and just feel in the wind, right? Oh, there's a cliff over here. Watch out for the ice over here. Industry specific M&A advisors are going to help me navigate that safely. Second is probably safe to say most businesses have had a business attorney, right? Bob, your old business attorney, you've had him for 20 years. This is the wrong time for loyalty, right? You want an experienced M&A attorney. Just because your friend Bob has done 4 or 5 transactions in a career, no, you want an experienced M&A attorney. And then lastly is you want to have a fantastic CPA, right? There's going to be a lot of scrutiny of your books and looking deeply into what's going on with your financials. And then thirdly, I'd say, look, selling your business is a very emotional and physically demanding experience. I always encourage people, hey, do what you can to start fashioning your life to get plenty of sleep, get the good, healthy food into you, and get active, right? Maybe it's not, I found powerlifting myself, but maybe it's walking, maybe it's gardening, biking, right? Hitting the gym, swimming. Get active, right? We've got one body. Let's take care of it to help us power through, get over the finish line of closing that deal, and then we can face the next chapter in a healthier self.
All right, great. So Marley, go sell something.
That's right.
Get the right people in your corner and get healthy. All right?
I love it.
Hey, well, thank you so much for joining, Adam. It was so great. And thanks for another episode of the Cloudcast, guys. And as always, I'll end it with go Birds. Let's go. Thanks, Adam.
Talk soon.
Later.